Come on! And this is what happens when you drive a Prius. The environment just loves you.
Isn't as Prius to me. I mean, it's meant for that. G'day guys, how are you going today? I have something extremely exciting for you. I have a 2020 Toyota Prius. Now this one here is the base model. It starts at about 40,000 Australian dollars, and there is a model above it called the iTech, which is $48,000 and comes with a leather interior, heated front seats, rear sensors for rear cross traffic alerts and blind spot monitoring, and also 17-inch alloys. But here's the thing. This is all you need. $40,000 for this car is a great price. This car is absolutely fantastic, and today I'm going to be telling you why. Now let's talk about the history of the car. So this car came out in December of 1997. That was when it first rolled down the production line. Well, not this one here, the first generation Toyota Prius. And that was a really uncharted territory in the entire car market. No car manufacturer had ever mass produced a hybrid vehicle. People had tested the idea before, but no one had ever been successful enough. Reason being is that the battery is really hard to make sure that it lasts as long as the rest of the drivetrain. So they needed something that could last at least 10 years, like the engine, like the transmission. And so Toyota did come up with the first generation Prius, and that one sold so well. By the end of its production in 2003, they had sold 123,000 units across the world, which is massive numbers for any brand new territory in the market. Fast forward to today, and we have the 2020 Gen 4 Toyota Prius that has recently had a facelift, which isn't really much of a facelift, but we'll get to that very soon. This one here was lent to me by Toyota Australia, and to make sure that we can keep getting these cool cars to review, hit that subscribe button. We want to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Like and comment as well below, because I want to interact with you guys on the channel. But anyway, on with the review. Now, as I said, this car had a facelift, but it wasn't much of a facelift, more dulling down the styling of this car, because this car was just too Prius-y in some people's minds, and so they wanted to make this car look more like a normal car. Starting with the front of this car, and gone are the crazy and boisterous headlights, and they're replaced by these more mainstream looking headlights in the facelifted model. Of course, that was intentional. They wanted this car to look less like a Prius than a normal car. And they've achieved that, but they've lost an element of that, I think, in its design. I really did like the look of that crazy Prius styling. Otherwise, the front of the car has remained largely unchanged. I also understand why people don't like the look of this car, but you have to remember that this car isn't designed so much for people's viewing as it is to be as smooth and aerodynamic as possible in the air, to cut through the air and make it more efficient. And it achieves that, but I guess at the expense of looking like a beautiful car. Now, looking at the side of the Prius, which is probably the most iconic angle of the Prius, it is largely uninspiring, but it is very Prius, and I think for that we can forgive it. There are some really nice features and touches on the side of this car. You've got really nice creases along the bottom. You have this great sloping roofline, which is quintessentially Prius, but it doesn't eat into the interior space, as we'll see very soon. I think the only bad thing about the side of this car are these god-awful wheels. These are 15-inch wheels, and they look like something off a Tonka truck. Now, you could go and spend an extra $8,000 to get the iTech package to get 17-inch wheels, but that is just so unnecessary. I think no matter which way you go, you're not going to get the most beautiful wheels or alloys on this car, but it still kind of suits the character of the Prius, and it actually serves a purpose. This does make the car more aerodynamic. So in my opinion, stay with the base model. The 15-inch wheels are fine. You're driving a Prius anyway. Does it really matter what your wheels look like? Now, taking a look at the back of this car, gone are the old tail lights, which I think actually look better than these ones, but they're replaced by these more mainstream looking tail lights, which I understand why they did it. It just, in my opinion, it doesn't look as good. But otherwise, the back has remained largely unchanged. You get this fastback look at the back, and I quite like the split windscreen design of this car as well. But yeah, it's a real shame they got rid of those taillights. Overall, I really like the look of the Prius. I think it does a very good job at looking like a Prius, though I think it's a shame to have replaced the front and rear taillights, because I don't know, they made the car look even more futuristic and even more like a Prius. But let me know what you guys think of the looks. Do you like it or do you not? Vote up there now, and also comment down below. I'd love to know what you guys think. Now let's talk about the engine, which is largely uninspiring. It's a 1.8 litre petrol engine, 4-cylinder, that puts out about 71 kilowatts of power and 142 newton meters of torque. Of course, that's not the entire story because it has an electric motor, being a hybrid, of course. So it bumps that up to 90 kilowatts of power and 163 newton meters of torque, which isn't very much, but it's certainly adequate for this car. Now, all that is driven to the front wheels using a continuously variable transmission. As I said in my Lexus video, which you can click up there now to watch, this car, the CVTs, they aren't very good. Especially in Toyota and Lexuses, they've never been known to be the greatest transmissions ever. However, in a car with such little power, just like this, and just like the Lexus, it works absolutely fine, and it's really not an issue at all. Now, this engine as well is rated for 3.4 litres per 100 kilometers. I'm getting about 4.3 litres per 100 kilometers, which is still absolutely incredible. This car is very fuel efficient, and I was genuinely surprised because I don't drive very softly on the pedals.
Come on!
Especially, but this car doesn't really care. It doesn't matter if it's on the highway or if it's in city driving, it gets about the same at about 4.3. So it is really, really good on gas, and you'll get about 1,200 kilometers out of a single tank, which is absolutely absurd. Now, looking at the interior of this car, I want to first start with these seats. These seats are extremely comfortable. I've done many hundreds of kilometers in this last week, and these seats have been so supportive. I've loved every second sitting inside of them, and it's one of the big reasons why I don't think you need the iTech package. Spending $8,000 more to get leather seats with 8-way adjustable arrangements on the seats, it's just not necessary. You still get really good manual kind of control of the seats. You don't need the leather interior. I think you're better spending that $8,000 going on a trip to Europe, for instance. Now, the steering wheel of the car as well is fantastic. It is synthetic leather, but it doesn't feel like it. It is super soft and supple in the hands. I really like it, and you can control pretty much everything from the steering wheel. It does have gloss black at the bottom of it. In fact, the interior has gone from gloss white to gloss black in this facelifted edition, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's not an issue at all, and you get so much control. For instance, you get cruise control. You can adjust the upper screen here, which shows you things like your battery charging rates and your eco kind of scores. It's really quite cool. So I'm a huge fan of this steering wheel. I think it does the car very, very well. Talking about the climate controls, these are fantastic. They are physical buttons and they work super well. You can adjust the eco of it. There's 2 different buttons on there to make the air conditioning more efficient. You have eco heat and cool, which will give the optimized kind of air from outside or inside the car and just make the car more efficient with its air conditioning. And you also can turn off the air conditioning in the back seats and keep it just on the front, and that makes the car even more eco-friendly, I suppose. And you get a score at the end as well, which will say, hey, well done, you've been driving really eco-friendly, you've done a great job. The infotainment is the biggest letdown by far. It is quite poor, especially when you compare it to competitors. Hyundai and Kia do it so much better, and it is just a real shame. The maps on this aren't anywhere near as good as using Waze or Google Maps. There's almost no point in using them. I think the best thing about it really is that it has breadcrumbs mode, where when you're driving, it'll show you where you've been by leaving little white dots on the map, which is a really cute feature. But otherwise, there's nothing really to write home about with this infotainment system. It's responsive enough. It's just not good enough when you compare it to its competitors. It would really benefit from Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The gear selector as well is quite odd. It works absolutely fine. It's not the most fun thing to use, and it's got a B mode, which stands for braking. So when you're going downhill, it'll slow down the car quite a lot. You get a wireless charging pad 2 cup holders. You get plenty of ways to connect your phone to the infotainment system. It would just be better if it had the ability to connect it using Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. A few more things I want to mention as well is that this car has some awesome speakers. These speakers are JBL and they sound absolutely fantastic, like weirdly good for a Prius. You can easily bang out to your favorite tunes down the highway in this car. It's really surprising. The heads-up display as well, really good. It's very bright. It shows you your speed, of course, and if you want to, it can show you your navigation and also your eco driving. So whether the car is charging or whether the car is using its petrol engine, it's all up there in the heads-up display, which is really good. You also get things like an EV mode, so you can put this car in electric only mode. It's only good for around 2 kilometers though, and is really only meant for moving in and out of your driveway, for instance. It's not meant for driving in longer distances. And you also have your drive mode selected down here as well, and that will go through power, eco and normal mode. I've left the car in normal mode. I don't know what eco mode will do, but power mode turns on the petrol engine pretty much all the time, so you've always got extra power on tap, but just keep it in normal mode. I mean, this is a Prius after all. You're not going to be getting amazing performance out of it. It is adequate performance in normal mode, and you're not going to get much better in power mode. Now, the rear of this car is really comfortable. I have plenty of space and I'm sitting behind myself here. I'm about 5'11", plenty of knee room and leg room. I'm super comfortable back here. Also, the roof has a cutout, so even though it's got a sloping roof line, I can sit back absolutely fine and be comfortable on longer journeys, which is really surprising, especially in a car that's pretty much like a coupe in its design. It does have only a 12-volt socket down there, which isn't very good. It doesn't have like USBs or anything like that, which is disappointing. Also, there are no air vents back here, so I don't know why it says that it turns off the air conditioning for the back seats when there are no air conditioning in the back seats. Or maybe I'm just missing something. I don't know, but I'm yet to find them. It does have a armrest with cup holders in there, which is good for longer journeys, although it doesn't really make a difference. It's pretty standard in most cars. Fitting 3 people across is a bit of a squish. It isn't the best, but you can do it. But if for 2 people back here, it's really quite comfortable, and you could definitely do longer journeys back here. It's a great Uber car if that's what you want, which I suspect a lot of people will want this car for. Now, the rear of the Toyota Prius has plenty of space in it and is one of the biggest reasons why you would buy a Prius over, say, a Toyota Corolla Hybrid. You just get more space in the Prius, as you've seen in the back seats and as you'll see in the boot. So the boot is really quite large, but it's also very practical in the way it works. So you get this large load cover lip here, which is fantastic if you just want to cover up whatever. But then under here, under the false floor, you can easily store it. And also under the false floor is a space saver spare wheel, which you don't see in a lot of new cars now. So that is really quite handy in case you do get a flat tire. As well, once you've removed the load lip, you can very easily put down the back seats if you want to store longer items. The only bad thing about that is it doesn't fold 3 ways. So if you want to load something like skis through, you can't just put down the middle seat. You'd have to put down an entire seat. So that is something to think about as well if you do go skiing. But for most people, it would work absolutely fine. And the rear of this car is really practical. But anyway, enough looking at just the looks of this car. Let's take it for a drive.
So, driving the 2020 facelifted Toyota Prius. One of the first things you notice is just how quiet this car is, because it starts up in electric only mode and then the engine kicks in probably once you start putting your foot down. But still, it's quite an interesting experience because you turn it on and nothing's happened. But the car is in fact on. Reversing up now, you do start to notice where maybe some reverse sensors would be good that you do get on the iTech package. But again, spending $8,000, it just doesn't seem worth it to me. I think this car is plenty for what you get as standard. When I picked up this car, one of the first things that really surprised me was the steering. It is so good in this car. It's got one of the best turning circles I have ever experienced. And the handling itself is actually quite sharp. Yes, there's body roll, but compared to, for instance, my partner's Hyundai Veloster, This thing honestly feels a lot nicer to drive, especially with the handling. Once you start accelerating a little bit as well, you feel that electric engine kick in, and honestly, it doesn't feel slow from the lower end. It's when you start to get up to that higher, you know, RPM, and you're at probably 50 kilometers an hour, that you really notice that this car does not have much left in its reserves. It's not going to push you very fast and propel you, but it will do the job. It's more just like, how long? Just sitting here at a stoplight, it is so comfortable. I'm so comfortable right now. I'm almost in a happy place. These seats are so nice to sit down on. I can't stress that enough. I'll put the car into power mode and I'll floor it now. Oh, a bit of wheel spin, and that's 60 kilometers an hour. It's not very fast, guys, but it doesn't need to be. Look at the smile on my face. This is a bloody Toyota Prius, and if it can put a smile on your face, that's all it needs. It's not a sports car, but it's a fun little car to be in. By no means fast, but fun to throw around. And as I said, that handling is fantastic. I think that the tires, though, they're obviously not racing tires. They're not very slick. They're very economy. So you're not going to be doing many, you're not going to be having the best traction when you're going around a corner like I just did. But it's such a great little car. Now, despite being a base model, as I said, this car does have a good suite of safety kit. So it comes with adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, you got lane keep assist and lane departure warning. So right now I'll put on the cruise control, and it's adaptive to 0 kilometers an hour, which is something that you really want. You want that adaptive cruise control that can do all speeds. So right now I'm traveling 60 kilometers an hour, and it will slow me down when we get to this car in front. I'm not touching the brakes at all. The cars in front of me are at a stop, and we're slowing down, and it's absolutely fantastic. And when I've been doing these few 100-kilometer commutes, I found that it has been an absolute lifesaver. The one thing that is annoying is that when the car does start moving in front of you, you have to allow the car to continue forward. You have to hit up on the cruise control or press the accelerator. And why that's annoying is that, oh, it just turned off. Why that's annoying is that when you're in traffic and everyone's really aggressive in the morning and you want to move forward so people don't cut in front of you, it takes a long time for it to do it, and it leaves a lot of space in front of you even when you turn down the sensor to the minimum setting, so it's as close to the car in front of you as possible. But that's the only downside. Otherwise, the active cruise control works really well, and it's something that I feel like if you have any car, as Doug DeMuro said in a recent video, you really want to have that in your car, adaptive cruise control all the way to 0 kilometers an hour. The lane keep assist is okay. It doesn't do an amazing job of holding you in the lane. You've still really got to hold on to that steering wheel. You can feel it turn you a little bit, but it doesn't do too much. So do keep that in mind. It's not the best from a company, but it does work relatively well, and it certainly warns you when you start to veer out of the lane, which is a really nice thing to have as well. A huge thank you to Toyota Australia for giving me this Prius for the week to review. Make sure you guys check out their social medias down below in the description, and we want to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so do subscribe right now, like and comment as well, because I will interact with you guys on the channel. And thank you guys very much.